He cheated on me while I was knitting baby booties. That's not a metaphor. I was literally sitting in our nursery, 7 months pregnant, crocheting tiny yellow boots, while he was across town impregnating his mistress. I didn't find out until after my daughter was born. I know. It sounds like a movie script written by someone trying too hard. But this is real, and I wish I could say it was just messy. Messy I could have handled. This was nuclear. We had been married for 6 years. I thought I knew who he was. Mark was charming, good with kids, worked in finance, and had just the right amount of "I make you feel safe" energy. He always put a hand on my lower back when we crossed streets. He knew how I liked my tea. He rubbed my swollen ankles every night without being asked. A walking green flag. Until the day I got a DM. It was from a girl named Leah. A short message. Polite. No anger. Just, "Hey, I think we need to talk. I didn't know you were still together." At first, I thought it was a mistake. A prank even. I showed it to Mark. He looked at the screen, paused, and said, "That must be spam." I should have known from the way he blinked twice before saying it. I ignored the message. Our baby came early. Emergency C-section. I nearly bled out. It was a blur of lights, tubes, and tears. The doctors saved me and our daughter, whom we named Sophie. I was too grateful, too overwhelmed to think about anything else. But 2 months after Sophie's birth, I found Leah's profile again. And this time I messaged her. She replied within minutes. Her tone was strained, kind even. Not what you'd expect from the other woman. She said she met Mark at a business seminar. He told her he was in the middle of a divorce. That I was controlling and had taken our daughter to another state. That he was devastated. He even showed her fake legal papers. My hands shook reading that. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was her last message. "I'm pregnant. About 12 weeks. I didn't know about Sophie. I swear. I just wanted to tell you because I want to do the right thing now. You seem like someone I can trust. I don't know anyone else. You're going to be my daughter's big sister's mom. I guess my future sister." I threw up in my mouth. And then I laughed. Laughed so hard I scared the baby. I told Mark that night. I held the phone up to his face. "You got her pregnant, too." His face went white. Like his whole soul had been sucked out through his pores. And then, like the spineless worm he is, he started to cry. I didn't mean for this to happen. No kidding. He begged me not to leave him. Said he'd go to therapy. Said he would take full responsibility. He even claimed Leah meant nothing to him. She tricked him, he said. She was calculating. But I had talked to Leah. And while I wanted to hate her, I couldn't. She was young, 24. Smart, yes. But too trusting. She believed the fake divorce papers. She thought she was helping him heal. She even sent me a screenshot of him telling her he wanted to start over and raise their child together, with less pain this time. That line hit me like a hammer. Because that meant I was the pain. So I moved out. Took Sophie. Filed for separation. And let him stew in his own lies. But here's where it gets weirder. Leah kept messaging me. Not angrily. Not even bitterly. She started asking me things like, "What prenatal vitamins did you take? Was Mark in the room with you during labor? Do you think he'll be a good father to my baby?" She talked like we were two women in the same boat. Like we were sorority sisters who got knocked up by the same frat guy and now had to make it work. It was insane. And a part of me felt guilty for ignoring her. I know. I shouldn't. But she was clearly alone. And scared. And now she was going through the exact same thing I did, except I had a mom and friends and some money. Leah didn't. She asked if I would come with her to her first ultrasound. Said she had no one else. That's when I blocked her. Because I realized Mark had broken us both. And if I showed up for her now, I'd be playing into the very thing he wanted. Women picking up the pieces while he skated off as a misunderstood man. I told him he needed to man up and be at that appointment. That he didn't get to disappear. He showed up. But here's the twist. He brought his mother. Yes, his mom. The same woman who once told me, "Marriage is about patience, dear. Sometimes men drift." She showed up to Leah's ultrasound like it was a family reunion. Hugged her. Cried when she saw the baby on the screen. Told Leah that she'd always wanted another granddaughter. I only knew because Lee Hoff all people sent me a picture. No caption. Just the image. A grainy black and white screen. and Mark's mom holding Leah's hand. My heart snapped. Not because I still loved him, but because I had thought I was the only one who got lied to. Turns out the whole family was in on it. Even my mother-in-law had known. She called me later that night and said, "Sweetheart, you're so strong. I hope we can all be friends through this. The children deserve that." Friends? With the girl who slept with my husband while I bled in a hospital bed. With the woman who replaced me without even knowing my name. That's when I realized this story isn't about Mark at all. It's about survival. About betrayal that comes wrapped in politeness. And about knowing when someone's cry for help is really a demand for your silence. I haven't answered Leah since. But I still wonder if I'm the villain in her story now. Because in mine, I'm just trying to breathe. I started therapy. Not because of Mark. Not because of Leah. But because I couldn't trust myself anymore. I couldn't trust my instincts or my ability to tell who is safe and who is dangerous wrapped in good manners. My therapist, her name is Dr. Myers, told me something in our first session that cracked me open. Just because someone says they're drowning doesn't mean you're the lifeboat. It hit me right in the gut. Because that's exactly what I'd been doing. Floating in other people's shipwrecks. Trying to patch their holes while mine kept widening. Leah was texting again. New number. "Hey. Sorry to reach out again. I understand if you're angry. I just don't know how to do this alone." I didn't answer. Then she sent, "Do you know if Mark liked the name Isla? I heard him say it once. I thought it was beautiful. Just wanted to know if it reminds him of something bad." I stared at that message for hours. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't demanding. It was so soft. And that's the dangerous kind of pain, the one that feels like a compliment. The one that gets under your skin because it's dressed in softness and shared tragedy. But I still didn't respond. 2 days later she sent a photo. A mirror selfie. She was in a maternity dress holding her bump, standing in what looked like a second-hand baby store. There were sticky notes behind her with prices. A tiny crib. A pink stuffed elephant. She wrote, "Found this place today. Thought maybe Sophie might like one too someday. Hope that's okay to say." That's when I broke. Not in a way that made me want to forgive her. Not in a way that made me want to help. I broke because I realized I wasn't just angry at Mark. I was furious at myself for still caring. For letting this girl, this mess, still live in my head rent-free. That night, I emailed Dr. Myers and asked her if emotional boundaries could ever be permanent. Like stitches. Something you could sew up so tightly that nothing ever got back in. She responded with something I'll never forget. "Boundaries are not stitches. They're fences. You don't build them to forget what's outside. You build them to remember where you end." I started building mine. I deleted Leah's messages. I blocked her again. And I decided to confront Mark, not about the affair, not about Leah, but about Sophie. Because in all this, my daughter had become a pawn in their twisted little drama. And I refused to let her be collateral damage in someone else's broken promises. We met at a neutral place, a coffee shop near my lawyer's office. He looked exhausted. Less groomed. Hair graying at the temples. But the same pitiful eyes. He asked how Sophie was. I told him she was learning to say mama and loved mango yogurt. He smiled too wide. "She must be beautiful. Like you." I didn't smile back. "I'm not here to reminisce," I said. "I'm here to talk about custody." His face tensed. "You're not going to let me see her?" "I'm going to do what's healthy for her," I replied. "Which means no shared custody until you get your life together." He blinked. "Leah's keeping the baby." I said nothing. He kept going. "I didn't ask her to. She just decided. Said she wanted to be a mom no matter what. And my mom's over the moon. Already buying little onesies." It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. "She thinks the baby will heal us," he added with a bitter laugh. "Isn't that insane?" I stared at him. "Yes. Because nothing about this is healing. You set fire to our life. Now you want to plant a garden in the ashes." He looked down. I leaned in, not angry but calm. Like ice forming around a wound. "You want to fix something? Start by being a decent father. Show up. Be consistent. Apologize with action, not tears. Because I will not let Sophie think that kind of love is normal." He nodded slowly. We finalized a temporary visitation plan, supervised, once a week, at a parenting center. He didn't argue. Maybe part of him knew he didn't have any ground to stand on anymore. Then, a week later, the second twist came. And this one almost made me laugh out loud again. Leah called my office line. Yes, my office. I'm a freelance interior designer and my business number is on my site. My assistant, Natalie, picked up. Told me someone named Leah was on the phone and sounded like she was crying, but also really polite. I told her not to transfer the call. Natalie hesitated. She said it's important. Something about the baby. Said you'd understand. I took the call in a conference room and put it on speaker partly because I didn't trust myself to hold the phone without throwing it. Leah's voice came through shaky. I'm sorry, she started. Please don't hang up. I didn't know who else to call. I didn't say anything. She laughed, she whispered. Who? Mark's mom. She said she can't do this anymore. Said it's too much and that she's not ready to be a grandmother again. I stayed silent. I'm alone, she said. And I'm scared. I thought maybe you'd understand. I closed my eyes. This was not my responsibility. This was not my story to fix. I had already bled enough. But then she said something I didn't expect. I'm not asking you for money or help. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I know that means nothing. But I didn't know who he really was. And when I found out, I was already in love with the idea of something that didn't exist. I opened my eyes. Still quiet. Still unsure. She continued. I wanted to hate you. For being the wife. For being the one he cried over. But then I saw you. Not just online. In pictures. In the way he talked about you. And I realized I was chasing a ghost. He was never mourning a failed marriage. He was mourning what he lost because he blew it up. That line hit hard. I finally spoke. What do you want from me, Leah? Silence. Then. Nothing. I just wanted to say it out loud to someone who might understand. And to thank you. For not being cruel. You could have ruined me. But you didn't. I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. Because some stories don't end with closure. They just end. I sat in that room for 10 minutes. Then I walked out, found Natalie, and asked her to remove my number from the website. She didn't ask why. But she offered me a granola bar and said, You look like someone who's walked through fire. You want chocolate or peanut butter? I took both. When I got home that night, Sophie was in her high chair, smashing avocado into her hair like it was finger paint. She looked up at me and laughed with her whole chest. That's when I knew I was done carrying stories that weren't mine. Mark's lies. Leah's pain. His mother's delusions. None of them belonged in the home I was building for Sophie. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel bitter. I felt free. 3 months passed. Sophie started crawling, then pulling herself up on furniture. Her giggle became this bubbly little sound that melted the edge off any bad day. She would look up at me like I was the sun, and I started believing it. Not because I was perfect, but because I was still here. Still trying. Still soft in places I hadn't let the world break. Mark came to the supervised visits. Mostly on time. Brought toys. Read books. He even changed diapers without complaining. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. I watched it all like a scientist observing a distant planet. Not cold but detached. I needed that distance to survive. Then, out of nowhere, Leah's name came back into my life again, but not through a call or a text. Through a blog post. A friend sent it to me with the message, Is this the girl? The post was titled, Learning to Co-Parent with His Wife. How I Found Sisterhood Through Betrayal. I almost dropped my coffee. It was public. Full name. Photos. Her bump. A filtered picture of her and Mark at a farmer's market. A paragraph about finding unexpected peace with the woman he once belonged to. Except we hadn't spoken since that last phone call. She wrote things like, We both loved the same man, but instead of hatred, we chose healing. She helped me see my own strength. We're building a village for both our daughters. It was like watching someone paint a mural over a collapsed building and calling it a castle. I felt sick. She turned me into a character in her redemption arc. A silent, saintly wife. A forgiving mother. The gracious ex. None of which I had agreed to. I could have sued. Or emailed her. Or posted my own version. But I didn't. I screenshot the article, printed it, and took it to my therapist. Dr. Myers raised an eyebrow and said, She's rewriting the story so she can survive it. I asked, and what am I supposed to do while she sells the paperback version of my trauma? She smiled sadly. You can do what writers do when someone plagiarizes their soul. You write louder. I started journaling again. Every day. The real version. The messy, ugly, beautiful version. Not to publish. Just to reclaim my voice. But still, something about Leah's version gnawed at me. Because what if Sophie found it one day? What if she grew up and thought I had welcomed that woman into our lives like a bonus mom? What if she thought silence meant agreement? That's when I made a decision. I wouldn't go public. But I would go honest with my daughter. When she's old enough to ask, I'll tell her the truth. That people don't always show up in black and white. That sometimes the villain has mascara-streaked tears and a baby on her hip. That forgiveness is not always a huge it's sometimes a locked door and peace you don't owe anyone else. I started a private email account. One that I'll give to Sophie on her 18th birthday. Every month I send her a letter. About what happened. About what I felt. About her first steps in the songs she dances to. About the time she clapped when she saw a sunset and said, Mama. Pretty fire. Because that's what this story is now. Not about who hurt me, but about who I became after. Meanwhile, Mark continued playing dad once a week. His visits became a routine. No more grand gestures. No more empty apologies. Just quiet effort. I kept it transactional. For Sophie. Not for him. Then, one Wednesday, Leah showed up to the parenting center. I wasn't supposed to see her. We stagger our visits, me drop off, her pickup. But she arrived early. Saw me through the glass. Froze. And I saw something new in her eyes this time, not shame, not hope. Fear. She walked over, holding a newborn. Skinny, pale, eyes red from crying. Please, she said. Just a minute. I almost turned away. But something in me stayed. I left him, she whispered. What? I left Mark. I blinked. He doesn't know yet. But I packed everything. Moved into a shelter near my sister's place. I said nothing. She looked like a ghost in yoga pants. I couldn't do it anymore, she continued. He kept talking about starting over. Buying land. Moving somewhere quiet. Said he wanted us to raise the girls like sisters. Like we were one big family. My stomach flipped. Then he showed me a binder. I frowned. What kind of binder? She reached into her diaper bag and pulled out a white 3-ring binder, swollen with printed pages. She handed it to me. The cover said, Blended Family Blueprint, How We Heal Through Love. Inside were printed Pinterest quotes, meal plans, sample bedtime routines, fake blog drafts with titles like Sisters by Chance, Mothers by Chaos. He had outlined content strategy for our journey. Leah whispered he was turning it into a brand. I flipped through. My name. My daughter. Photos from my old Facebook. He had been planning a podcast. A book. A platform. On our pain. On my story. I nearly screamed. I slammed the binder shut. Leah looked down. I didn't know. I thought he was just trying to be present. To fix things. But then he started talking about sponsorships. Monetizing the blog. Pitching the narrative to a parenting site. She looked up, finally crying. I realized didn't want to make peace. He wanted to perform it. I wanted to say I told you so. I wanted to say you helped him try to sell the wreckage. But I didn't. Instead I asked, what now? I'm going to my sister's. She said she'll help with Isla. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry again. Not because I want your forgiveness. But because I want your daughter to grow up in a world with fewer lies. I nodded once. She turned to leave. Then stopped. And said the one thing I'll remember forever. You survived him with grace. I barely survived him at all. That's not your fault. But I hope it reminds you your silence wasn't weakness. It was mercy. Then she was gone. A week later, Mark showed up to his visit alone. No Leah. No Isla. He looked different. Smaller. He didn't smile. Didn't ask how I was. Just nodded. She left. I said nothing. She said I used her, he added. That I was trying to build a brand, not a family. Still I said nothing. He exhaled. Guess I deserve that. Then he looked up at me. Do you think Sophie will ever forgive me? I finally answered. She doesn't need to. She needs you to show up. Quietly. Honestly. without asking for anything back. He nodded. That day he sat with Sophie on the floor and helped her build a tower out of foam blocks. She knocked it over. He laughed softly. I watched from the window. Not because I missed him, but because I was making sure the tower didn't fall on her again. That night, I wrote Sophie another letter. I told her how strong she was. How beautiful. How she came into this world wrapped in chaos and turned it into rhythm. I told her that healing isn't always loud. That sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is walk away without an explanation. And I told her that no matter what version of the story she finds out there, this was mine. Not glossy. Not clean. But true. Years passed. Sophie turned 4. She loves dinosaurs, peanut butter toast, and insists on sleeping with her feet sticking out of the blanket so the stars can see them. She still calls mango yogurt moon goo, and every night before bed, she asks me if I'm proud of her. I always say yes. Mark kept his visits. To my surprise, he never pushed. Never asked for more. He showed up. Sometimes awkward, often quiet. But he showed up. And Sophie grew up with a version of him that wasn't perfect, but wasn't absent. She calls him Dad. And that's okay. Leah? She stayed gone. I got a message once from her sister, actually. A quick note, nothing dramatic. Just that Leah had started working part-time at a bookstore and Isla was healthy. She attached a photo. I stared at that picture for a long time. Isla looked nothing like Sophie. Different curls. Different eyes. But the same wild energy. The same brightness kids have before the world teaches them to dim it. I didn't respond. But I didn't delete it either. I kept it in a locked folder on my phone labeled Sophie's Future. Because someday she might ask. And I don't believe in hiding the whole truth, just waiting until it could be held without shattering. One afternoon when Sophie was 5 and had just learned how to spell her name backwards, she was thrilled to be Ipos. She asked a question I'd been quietly dreading. We were driving home from preschool. Mom? Yeah, sweetie. Why don't I have a sister like Layla? Layla, her best friend, had twin brothers and a baby sister. I kept my eyes on the road. Well, I said gently, every family is a little different. Some have lots of kids. Some have just one. She was quiet for a second. Then, did I have a sister that died? I almost choked on my breath. No, I said quickly, gently. No, sweet girl. You didn't lose anyone. You just have your own story. That seemed to satisfy her. For now. But it reminded me that someday I would need to explain. Not today. Not at 5. But someday. And when that day comes, I won't tell her a fairy tale. I won't paint her father as a villain or Leah as a thief. I'll tell her that adults make mistakes. Some small. Some life-altering. Some with ripple effects that reach generations. I'll tell her that real strength is not just about surviving pain, it's about what you do when you could hurt someone back and don't. I'll tell her that women don't owe each other war. And that forgiveness doesn't mean you let someone back into your life, it just means you're no longer dragging their memory like a rusted chain behind you. And I'll tell her one more thing. That she saved me. Because she did. Sophie gave me a reason to rewrite the story. To stop casting myself as the broken wife or the abandoned woman. And to start becoming the kind of mother I would have wanted to run to when everything fell apart. She doesn't know the full story. But she knows this. Our home is safe. Her laughter matters. Her dreams are not something she has to shrink for someone else's comfort. And that's enough. For now. One morning when Sophie was 7, she found the binder. Yes, that binder. Mark's blended family blueprint. I hadn't thrown it away. I'd tucked it in a box labeled legal stuff in the back of the closet. She was digging for crayons and pulled it out like buried treasure. What's this? She asked. I froze. Sat down beside her on the carpet. It's something from when you were a baby, I said. Can I show you later, when you're a bit older? She shrugged. Okay. But she flipped it open anyway. Her eyes widened at the photo of her dad and me in the first page. You look so young, she said, giggling. I smiled. Then she turned a few pages and frowned. Who's this lady? She was pointing at a picture of Leah, obviously cropped from something casual. Her belly was big. Her smile forced. That's someone I used to know, I said carefully. She stared. Is that Isla's mom? I blinked. She had never said Isla's name before. I nodded slowly. Yes. She looked at me very seriously. Do I have a sister? I took a deep breath. Yes, I said. You do. Her name's Isla. Can I meet her? I paused for a long time. Then said, I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe someday. When it's safe and when you're ready. She thought about it. Then, okay. She placed the binder back into the box like it was full of bones. And then she pulled out her crayons and asked if I'd help her draw a space dog. Just like that. No drama. No meltdown. Kids are so much braver than we give them credit for. 2 years later, I did hear from Leah again. This time through Sophie. She had gotten a birthday card in the mail. No return address. No last name. Just, to Sophie. From your sister, Isla. Inside was a hand-drawn picture. 2 stick girls. Holding hands. One had curly hair. One had pigtails. There was a sun and a dog and a cupcake with 7 candles. Sophie lit up. Isla knows my birthday. I held the card in shaking hands. Inside was one more note, printed in a different handwriting. It said, whenever you're ready, we're just across town. Love, Isla and her mom. There was a phone number. I didn't call. Not yet. But I put the card in the drawer beside Sophie's bed. And I told her if you want to meet her, I'll make sure it's safe. I promise. She nodded. Can Isla come to my party next year? Maybe, I said. Let's see how things go. She seemed satisfied with that. Then she ran off to feed her stuffed animals gummy bears. And I sat on the floor for a long time holding the card. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. For the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like I was standing in the wreckage. It felt like I was watching the horizon. Not everything was healed. Not everything would be. But I had done something most people never do. I had taken a story that was never supposed to be mine and rewritten it into something that didn't end with bitterness or revenge or blame. It ended with boundaries. With strength. With love, not the kind that keeps score, but the kind that says, even though you broke me, I chose to become whole anyway. So if you ask me now, was I the asshole for not helping my husband's pregnant mistress when she called me sister? No. I wasn't. I was the one who finally stopped letting broken people write my story.